Hello, and welcome to an update on the state of the U.S. presidential election as of October the 26th. My name is John Toffelmeyer. I'll start with a quick overview of the race nationally, but I'm going to spend most of this video focusing on some really surprising numbers from real voting that's come out of the state of Nevada that I think is very telling. This really surprised me when I saw it, and when you see it, you're probably going to be surprised too. So let's get on with it. And at the national level, I've got Trump ahead by 0.2%. This is pretty close to what the consensus is. And as a result of that, I have Trump ahead in every swing state. So let's just run through them very quickly. In Nevada, which we're going to focus on much more detail in just a moment, he's up by 0.9 percentage points, 1.1 percentage points in Wisconsin, 1.4% in Michigan, 1.7% in North Carolina, 1.9% in Pennsylvania, 2.3% in Arizona, and 2.6% in Georgia. And given that the other states are bigger and are not really in play at the moment, I think the Electoral College looks like 312 for Trump, 226 for Harris. This isn't really surprising. This is quite the kind of the consensus view right now. So with that, I'm going to show you some real data, though, that might kind of upset all of this. So let's look at that. And the idea from this, we look this is the swing state percentage share and all of the swing states, and this compares what we expect Trump is going to receive in each of these states based on his national percentage. And so what this does is it lines up the 7 swing states from most likely for Trump to least likely. And on this list, Nevada is the closest state of the swing states. The one that Trump is least likely to carry based on my analysis of the state and national polling. But let's look at some real numbers. And so let's turn to some real votes and look at the early voting data that's come out of the state of Nevada as of today, October 26th. And they report mail ballots and in-person early voting, and they tell us the party affiliation of the voters. So people that are registered Democratic, people that are registered Republican, in-person early voting, same thing. We can see that the Democrats have about a 10 percentage point lead in the mail ballots as of today, 31,000 vote lead, actual vote lead in terms of the number of voters. In in-person early voting, the Republicans have about a 25 percentage point lead, much bigger. Republicans like early to vote in person. Democrats are more amenable to voting by mail. The Republicans lead by about 60,000 votes. So 60,000 vote lead in in-person early voting, 31,000 vote lead by the Democrats in mail ballots. Then we've got these are independents, and we can make some assumptions about the way independents are voting. That the swing state information that I have tells me that Harris is probably leading based on that. I'm going to assume she has about a 2-point lead in this state for the independent voters. So I think it's fairly conservative, but even given that, you're going to see that there's some very interesting numbers that come out of this. This is not rocket science either. Let's take a look at those numbers. And these numbers show that my estimation, based on these figures on the previous slide, that Trump has about a 19,000 vote lead and about a 3.4 percentage lead in votes. This is, and my estimation is that this is probably about a third, 35, 37% of the final vote. So there's still a lot of votes to be cast, but this is a telling lead. And I went back and looked at the 2020 data. it's pretty consistent day after day for the in-person voting. So he's going to keep this in-person voting. So the question is, are more Democrats? The Republicans seem to have reduced the margin of in the mail-in voting to only a 10 percentage point lead for the Democrats. The Democrats are going to have to increase that number significantly in the coming days if they're going to have any chance to win this state. And this state, if they can't win Nevada, it's hard for me to see whether they're going to win any of the swing states based on what we're seeing here. So, so let's turn our attention to the 2020 figures. Now, remember what we said that the Democrats had a 10-point lead in the mail ballots. This is from 2020. This was all the votes that were cast. All the votes. The Democrats had a 20-point lead. They got a 20. They had 20 points lead in the mail ballots 4 years ago. It's only 10 points now. That's a 10 points. They've cut that lead. And in-person early voting 4 years ago, the Republicans only led by 15 percentage points. They're up by 25 percentage points now. Again, it's a 10-point swing. This is huge. Absolutely. The Republicans have both cut into the lead for the Democrats in the mail ballots and have expanded it in the early person voting. Now, the day of election voting, what's interesting here, you can see just by eyeing it very quickly, one, the Republicans won the early voting. They had about a 10-point lead in the early voting. And note how small this is relative to the mail ballots and in-person early voting. Now, there's probably going to be more people voting in person on the day of the election in Nevada, but there's probably not going to be that many. We're going to have a pretty good idea based on the figures what that are available on the day of election from mail ballots that have been accepted in person early voting. It's and when you take this, if you take these numbers and make the same assumptions, very similar assumptions as to what I made to make the calculations I showed you earlier, you come up with pretty close to the actual numbers. So I think this is real. I think the numbers that we're seeing are real. They're telling us something that we need to pay attention to. I've seen some people talk about pointing this out, and they're saying that there's some concern. I don't think if you're a Democrat, you shouldn't just be concerned. The alarm bells need to be going off. If you're a Democrat, you've got to be chasing down and finding out what's going on in this state and why aren't we getting more mail-in votes? What there's got to be a massive effort to try to figure out what's going on, because if this doesn't turn around by the time we get to the day of voting, it's going to be very difficult to see that the Democrats are going to carry Nevada. And if Trump wins this state by any significant amount, it's very difficult for me to see how Kamala Harris has any chance in this election. If you're a Republican, this should be very cheering. If you're a Democrat, this should be alarming. So we're going to go to the state of Pennsylvania and look at where this state is at right now in in-person early voting. So let's turn our attention to the state of Pennsylvania, where we can see, and I've used the same analysis as before, the same approach, taking the in-person. Again, Pennsylvania tells us the party affiliation, so we can take that. We can crunch those numbers based on our expectation that the Democrats really are Democrats, the Republicans really are Republicans, and they're going to vote the way that people who respond to polls do, and that the others are independent and third party. And here I'm making actually that Harris probably has about a 6 percentage point lead in the independent vote in this state. So I'm being pretty generous, I think, in that. She's got about a 37% lead. Now, the thing to remember here is this is a majority of people over 65 that have cast their votes in this state. So this is unlike in Nevada, Pennsylvania people vote differently. We're going to see lots of early voting, and particularly Republicans, although I will say the share of Republican votes has increased compared to 4 years ago. So there are more Pennsylvania Republicans that are voting by mail than 4 years ago. So a little bit different. This just gives an early indication. Harris is in the lead, but this numbers are probably going to close as we get closer to election day. But we do have real data. I'll have more from other swing states in the coming days. So if you think this analysis is interesting, if it's something that you think people should know about, please like and share. And if you're interested in this and want to see more, please come back tomorrow. I'm going to have videos out every day until election day. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.